In business tonight, U.S. President Donald Trump's plans to impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium rippled across markets in Asia. As an indication, aluminium futures in London traded up, while in the U.S., steel coil jumped more than 5%. While Canada remains the top exporter, across Asia, companies have also been sending steel shipments to the U.S. from China to India and Vietnam. The South Asian nation, along with China and South Korea, as well as Australia, also export aluminium to the U.S. Raw material suppliers to make steel felt the edge of the tariffs. Shares in Rio Tinto, one of the world's biggest mining companies, closed down 1.2% in today's trade. Manufacturers of steel in India fell. Tata Steel was down more than 3%, while JSW Steel slid around 2.2%. Now, over in China, one of the biggest iron and steel firms dipped. POSCO Holdings in South Korea slid slightly by the end of the trading day. Now, for more analysis on this, we're joined by Alexander Kershaw. He is senior analyst at Fastmarkets. Mr. Kershaw, good to see you. Given U.S. President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminium into the U.S. are meant to affect all countries, what is the likely impact on Asian producers in the short run and in the long run?
In the short run, for Asian markets, for example, notably Japan, Korea, Taiwan, the actual exports to the US are not significant relative to other suppliers, notably Canada. The potential effect, though, is a bit of a dampener on prices and issues that will affect the region. Should say that generally East Asia has been struggling in terms of steel demand over the past year or so. Part of that's due to recent slowdowns in, for example, construction levels in Japan, Korea, and notably real estate production issues in China. Now, with tariffs coming into effect, we think that will hamper the steel sector. The export of steel to the US, but we don't believe there's much room for steel prices to fall further in Asia, given that the US is not actually its key market, the region's key market.
But we do know that South Korea and Vietnam are among the largest Asian sources of U.S. steel imports. What other countries in the region are most vulnerable, you think?
Sure. So you're right to point out that Japan and Korea are key exporters to the US, producing products such as flat-rolled steel that will go to the US, looking around 3 million tons combined from Japan and Korea per year. Other regions parts of the region that look like they'll be pressured. Currently, the US is looking at duties on galvanized coils from Vietnam, for example, and also Taiwan. I understand that two of the largest Vietnamese galvanizers will face limited duties, but for smaller producers, they're looking at duties of between 46% and 140%. Now, those volumes, maybe not significant volumes going to the US from Vietnam, but that will put some pressure on markets where Vietnam does sell to, as some volumes that would have gone to the US will be directed to other regions.
All right. And as for the raw material suppliers, how is this going to affect them? Australia comes to mind with its mining giants like Rio Tinto.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question, as we expect, Asian markets have been slow, and we expect them to be slow for steel in terms of the downstream demand. Now, with tariffs coming into effect on steel exports from Asia to the US, you're going to see a slight further slowing in actual steel demand and steel prices. Now, Australia is not a huge exporter of iron ore to the US, but if Asian markets fall, that presents an issue to Australian exporters of iron ore. The other side is Brazil is another major iron ore exporter, typically competing with Australia. And Brazilian volumes move significantly more to the US than Australian volumes. It's around 7% of Brazilian exports of iron ore go to the US. Now, that iron ore would likely be directed to the much bigger market for Brazil, which would be China, and also Japan and Korea. Now, that presents some downside to prices, given that that iron ore that would have gone to the US will go there and means more supply in the region in Asia.
All right, Mr. Kershaw, I appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Alexander Kershaw there, Senior Analyst from Fastmarkets.